What's going on, everyone? Looking at the market today, it was all over the place. In today's video, we're going to go over our top predictions for the market going forward and some of the best things to do in this type of market. So even on choppy days, you can still find opportunities. So we're going to be covering that today as well. Towards the end of today's video, we have a $5.4 million trade that I promise you will not want to miss. But all in all, we have a great video today, and we do have a lot to talk about, so you better stick with us. But with that being said, Tom, let's jump right into today's episode.
Yeah, Mike, that market was extremely choppy today. Now, we did actually move up from open and had a pretty good move back to the upside, but that big drop in pre-market kind of made it to where we closed fairly flat on the day. Now, we did close up 0.42%, which is pretty decent, but most of that came right around the end of day. You can see how choppy it was on my chart there as we traded between like 430.60 and 431.80. Those are some pretty big levels. You can see multiple rejections there until we finally got that breakthrough end of day. And I honestly will not be surprised if we maybe pop up for a couple days because the market has just been down so hard lately. You know, I think we could maybe retest 434, maybe even 435 tomorrow as some upper levels that we might reject off of. But I am keeping that on the radar just in case we do pop up. Now, obviously, I would love for the market to go straight down, but that's never the case. There's always going to be a couple green days mixed in here and there.
Exactly. And a lot of people are probably looking at the market right now saying, what the hell? Like, how do you trade a market that is just so choppy all day long? And a lot of times the best things you can do is, instead of trying to fight the super choppy market, is just to really capitalize and take advantage of the stocks that are moving. And some of the stocks that are starting to move the most right now are these marijuana and like weed stocks. So basically every now and then, these types of stocks get some, news, whether it's with, potential more legalization or like any news at all. And when that happens, a lot of times the stocks just run up like it's no one's business. And basically what we have this week is a pretty big catalyst for like these weed stocks. And well, like I said, whenever this happens, they really go crazy. So Tom, fill us in. What do we have going on here?
Yeah, we've been talking about this actually for a little while now. They've been talking about getting this banking bill passed with marijuana for a long time, in my opinion, and it's just now finally going to get through the committee and then go to finally have a vote in the Senate and the House. So it's going to be a big deal once those big floor votes finally do happen. But right now, it's getting through this committee, and they're saying that it should get through there pretty easily and that they're not really anticipating too many amendments with this. So they're not going to change the bill too much from what it is now, which is good. And they said a strong majority will approve it. But to kind of understand this process, we kind of have to look at the life cycle of a bill. First, a representative sponsors a bill, then the bill is assigned to committee for study. That's kind of where this is at right now. And once it gets through this committee, then it will be put on the calendar to be voted, debated, or amended by the House or Senate. Now, obviously, this is talking about the House here, but both of the bills can be introduced in both of those houses or chambers of Congress, you would say. But the big news, though, is really that this is going to give these marijuana companies more access to loans, more lending. They're going to be able to borrow easier from banks in just about every capacity. And right now, they're facing a lot of problems with that because of all the federal legalization problems with marijuana. On a federal level, marijuana is still scheduled as some of the hardest drugs out there. So that's a big problem, and it's been posing a lot of financial security problems for these companies because this will really help them to get those loans and to start getting maybe even government programs established for it.
So, like, a lot of people, when they think of marijuana or weed stocks, they think that they should be money printers, right? But it's like, when you look at any weed stock out there, it's like a dumpster fire. It's just brutal, and it's just, like, absolutely horrible performance, and it's just like a giant mess. And essentially, like, while marijuana is legal in some states, just like Tom said, it is still illegal federally. So that like presents a giant problem for all these marijuana companies because, if you can't access like the federal banking system, it just makes your life horrible. And, if this, Safe Banking Act eventually does pass, it can be very great for all weed stocks and marijuana companies. In turn, we're starting to see these marijuana stocks move up a little bit right now, kind of in anticipation of this event. And this always brings in a lot of volatility when we have these types of events. So the main thing to know is watch like stocks like TLRY, CGC, ACB, ETFs like MSOS very closely over this next week because they will move a lot and there's some, real news and like catalyst behind the moves.
Yeah, now one that I kind of like is PLNH. It's a bit of like an outlier, but there's a bunch of marijuana stocks out there. There's even like the MJ ETF. There's a whole bunch. I really like MSOS considering that it's a U.S. cannabis ETF. I love that they focus on the U.S. ones there because they'll benefit the most from the laws changing. But yeah, it's going to be big here for this week. And hey, it would be nice to see Tilray get up to maybe $4 or $4.20 again. It's been a while since we've started to see these stocks really run, and I'm hoping that they don't dip down too much in the short term. Hopefully this passes with flying colors, though, and then the House gets it on the calendar quickly, too. We don't want it to take like 2 years for it to pass, right? Like, hopefully they can get this pushed through quicker.
Exactly. And then, Tom, just like we talked about in yesterday's video, ticker symbol CGC had like an $800,000 big money play into it. Someone bought a bunch of those 50-cent strike call options on CGC that expire on January 19th of 2024. And, when you look at CGC today, it's up, basically 12%. So that's pretty awesome as well. So just keep a close eye on these stocks going forward. But on a different note, Tom, for this week, we do have some earnings reports and we have Powell speaking. So what's on the calendar for tomorrow and the rest of the week?
Yeah, so tomorrow we have Costco reporting in after hours. That's going to be a pretty big report, so keep them on the radar. We have Nike on Thursday with BlackBerry. Micron will be my favorite on Wednesday and after hours, so make sure you're keeping your eyes out for that. But going over to the calendar, like you said, Powell is actually speaking, and this is going to be on Thursday. We also have the GDP growth rate Thursday morning, 1 hour before the market opens too. I think that's also going to be extremely, extremely important. But Powell will be speaking later that night at 4 p.m. Eastern time, so be ready for that. It's not going to be too crazy. It's with educators in Washington, D.C., so keep that in mind. It's not like he's speaking with, the European Central Bank president or anything like that.
Alrighty, so good stuff there. And on another note, while September has been pretty bad so far, at least looking at some historical data, October is set to be better. So basically, when we look at any situation where August and September are down 1% or more, most of the time, October ends up in the green. And to be more specific, 76.9% of the time, October ends up being green, and on average, it ends up popping by 4.5%. So while this is like a relatively bullish outlook, it's also worth noting that most of the time, the market rises anyway. You know what I mean? It's like you can pick any situation out there, and, most of the time, you're going to see the market going up. But either way, I thought this was interesting. And one thing that I did notice is like, you look at some years, like let's say 2011, where October was up 11%, or like October of 1974, where it was up 16.3%. Like those definitely like really pop the average, but there also have been like a decent amount of years where October is, red, like in 1957, or it just does nothing at all, like in 1959 or 1956 and stuff like that. So I don't know, just keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and something that I actually think that I'm taking away a little bit more from this, rather than even just October, is 92.3% of the time, Q4 in general ends up green. That's a pretty big number there. Looking here, there hasn't really been There was only one time, 1957, where Q4 actually went red, at least going by this data. So that's very interesting to see, Mike. And it's definitely one of those things that paints a bit of a better picture after maybe we get out of some of these hard times here. But, with Powell talking about raising rates and stuff coming up, I don't know if these... if this time, if the historical data is going to play out or not. But hey, I'll say this, September played out really well.
Exactly. So, it's easy to look back at historical data and, kind of guess what might happen. But at the end of the day, every single year is unique. If you were looking at historical averages in 2020, your mind would have been blown. And you could say the same exact thing for 2021, 2022, and a lot of 2023. So keep that in mind as well. And as we go to look at SPY on, let's say, a daily chart or weekly chart, the way I see it is I am a little bit bearish still, but I'll say this. If we want to see a bearish move, the quicker it happens, the better, because the more time that goes by, the more it lasts in the bull's favor, because at the end of the day, there's just constant money flowing into the U.S. market on a day-to-day basis, and it almost never stops. And a lot of times, the best bearish opportunities that we have in the market are also the quickest. You know what I mean? If you just have a move down of, let's say, 10% that lasts 6 months, it's nowhere near as good of an opportunity as if that move ended up taking a couple weeks or, a couple days. So, the quicker we move down, the better it is for bears, and the higher the more likely that we will see a, better opportunity filled sell off. But all in all, Tom, I'm a little bit bearish, but nothing too overwhelming as of this second.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the SPY's daily chart, and I'm thinking, what are some big supports that I'm kind of watching to the downside? I've really been keeping my eyes on 420 to the downside. I think that's my main target. I've been talking about that for a little while in the Discord, and that's one of those levels that I would love to see the market get down to in a quicker time span. Like you said, I don't want it to take a month or 2 months. That would be pretty annoying. I would hope that we could get there within a few weeks if we were going to see some type of extended drop off of what we're seeing now, because that movement last week and the beginning of this week obviously has been green, but last week was so bearish, Mike. Man, I like I said, I think we might pop up for a couple days and then maybe get some more big red candles coming in and get back towards that 425, 420 area. But there's a lot of big supports coming up to the downside, so I'm going to keep my eyes on those. But I'm definitely bearish too, especially because of what Powell's been saying with the rate hikes coming up this year. Those probabilities seem like they just keep going higher and higher.
No doubt. All right, Tom. Well, it's now time for the fun stuff, which are some setups for tomorrow. One stock I'm watching very closely is ticker symbol SE. So this stock has had a wild ride. Basically, it has highs of, $375 a share that it made in 2021. Right now, it's all the way down to 40. And, just, a couple days ago, this thing was at 35. So it moved up by 12% today. And basically what happened is TikTok is set to have increased regulations in Indonesia, which is one of SE's biggest markets. And by TikTok getting limited, that really helps SE's e-commerce business. So that definitely helped them a lot today. But what's also worth noting is that we covered 2 big money trades on this stock lately. One of them was a $2.6 million call play, and then the other one was a $4.2 million call debit spread. So we did warn about this as the stock was low, and even though it is up 12% today, I can definitely see it popping up more. It doesn't necessarily have to go up tomorrow, but over the next couple weeks and months, I do think there's a great risk-to-reward setup on this one, but don't, you got to give yourself some time. If you're going to trade it, don't expect it, you got to buy some time, especially if you trade options, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I mean, man, this is a stock that's so low right now. If it starts to fill this gap between like $50 and $60 or 50 and 56, that would be an insane move. So I'm hoping that this stock, at least in the short term, starts to get some better movement. And by the short term, I mean like the next couple of months. This is a pretty fun stock to look at, especially with that big money play, Mike. Those 40 strike calls, $2.6 million. They bought them on the 13th. Of course, it dipped down a little bit, but if we get like another green day like today, they're going to be making maybe, 100% or more on these calls. So definitely keep your eyes on that. The big money is fun to watch. But Goldman Sachs is actually my next play, Mike. And this is actually a play that I'm eyeing up for the next couple of months. Actually, I'm not necessarily looking at this right away. I'm watching this big trend line, and it's almost like a big wedge going on here. This lower trend line around like 320 to 325 is huge. There's been so many bounces there, so many bounces at the upper trend line too. If we start to fall out of this, I'll start to look to short Goldman Sachs a little bit. I think that this stock could fall down a little bit more, maybe down to 300, maybe even a test of 280, I think, in the longer term, if the banking sector starts to take a hit. And I think that they will, especially with how rates keep rising. Like, man, I think that mortgages and the housing sector is about to take a big dump. So let's see what happens, Mike. But I'll definitely keep my eyes on these banks as they're starting to throw up some warning signs, we'll say, especially what I see with credit cards too.
Alrighty. Another stock I'm watching pretty closely is Tilray. You guys knew this one was coming, especially with the news that we have this week. Again, it's a marijuana stock. It's very crazy, so if you can't handle the heat, then get out of the kitchen with this one. But if you can handle the volatility, this stock has had some insane runs in the past, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes the stock does dip down as well, but the more news, the more volume, the more hype that there is in the marijuana industry, the better it is for this stock, because these stocks kind of move in like a all or nothing type of way.
I love it, Mike. I mean, I think Tilray and these marijuana stocks are going to be awesome. If that really does pass that committee this week, and then it has some favorable votes, maybe in the Senate or the House, or, if maybe it's projected to pass pretty easily, that would be great for it. So I love it. Let's keep up this good momentum. And I think this will be some of the better stocks to trade the next few days, because they have a mind of their own too. It's not like you have to really worry about the SPY too much. Whenever you have Tilray here, it doesn't really care too much about the SPY. But going over to AMD, it's actually my next setup, and I think AMD might actually pop up for a couple days. I'm gonna kind of go back to the upside for a retest of $100, and there was a bunch of levels AMD was bouncing off of intraday today. One specifically is 97.20. Towards the end of the day, we got a nice breakout there, and there's some very nice resistances overhead that I'm looking for us to run into, like $99 and $100. You can see those big levels stacked up there in the middle of the day with those dark orange arrows. That is actually sellers stacked up there at 100 and at 99. So if we see those come in tomorrow, it'll show they're still there. And usually on those big levels like 100, they're always sitting there. So I'll be watching AMD for a retest of 100. I think the market might pop up for a couple days, and if that happens, we have to be a little bit adaptable and go with calls maybe. But I think that I don't think it'll be popping up for too much longer. Just a couple days, then more selling.
Yeah, trading without Bookmap is literally like trading with a blindfold on. You can clearly see throughout the entire day today with AMD, there were sellers just stacked around that like $97 to like $97.20 level, and without having Bookmap, you would have no idea that sellers were just sitting there waiting, and it is no surprise that AMD got rejected off 97 to like 97.20 so many times today. So guys, you have to try out Bookmap at least for a month if you haven't already tried it out. It is awesome, and there's nothing else out there like it. If you want to try it out, you want to check out that first link in the description in the comments down below. If you use that link, you will save. We do have coupons and special offers automatically attached to it. So definitely check it out. Bookmap is awesome. But Tom, it's now time for the momentum plays for tomorrow. And with the first one, we have WEAT, or wheat, to the upside.
Yeah, this one was nice today. Very good move. If they end up breaking out above $5.90, then I'll look at some calls. It's sitting there right in after hours, so it'll be a very early morning breakout, hopefully.
There we go. With the next one, we have PayPal also to the upside. And Tom, this one's been taking a beating over the past couple weeks and months, so it's good to finally see some positive price action with this one.
Yeah, it is. And there's actually like a double top from last week that we're kind of sitting at here. If we break above $59, look for those calls. I think we could test $60 or $60.50 pretty easily tomorrow. Like I said, I'm kind of hoping for a bit of a green day the next couple days. So I think PayPal would be one of those that could pop up pretty easily.
All right, sounds good. And with the last one, we have Amazon for both directions.
Yeah, nice triple or double top there end of day. If they get out above 131.80, then go ahead and look at those calls. I like that level there, that double top. If they end up falling down under 130.50, then look at puts. There was a pretty big hit in pre-market around there.
Alrighty, so we have that downside level for puts, we have the upside level for calls, and then don't forget about PayPal and Wheat, also with their upside levels as well. If they break above them, there's opportunity, but if they do not break above them, then just ignore them. But with that being said, it is now time for my favorite part of the video, which is the big money trade of the day. Today we have a pretty big money trade, and that is a $5.43 million trade with SQQQ. And basically, someone bought $5.4 million of the 15 strike call options that expire on March 15th of 2024. SQQQ will pop up if the market goes down, and more specifically, it will pop up if QQQ or the NASDAQ goes down. And looking at SQQQ, I do like it right now. It has a great risk reward. It can also be a pretty good hedge play, but at the same time, this is not something you will want to hold on to for too long. It can be great when there's panic in the markets, but it's like, over long periods of time, you should not be holding this.
Yeah, it seems like some type of whale out there is expecting a short-term downtrend, or at least if they are not expecting it, they are at least hedging for it. I'll say that. $5.4 million. Like, man, that is quite a bit into some calls on such a volatile stock like this. They went pretty far in the money, too, at 15 strike. That's pretty good. I'm in on the 17 strikes, and I feel like I'm in the money pretty good. So imagine the 15. So if this keeps going, that'll be really good for these guys, obviously. It's all the way out to March of next year, so they have quite a bit of time. Keep that in mind, too. Like, if it goes down for a couple days, they're not going to be too worried about it.
Exactly. So keep a pretty close eye on SQQQ. Whenever someone dumps $5.4 million into a trade like this, I promise you, it is not by random chance. So a lot of times big money plays are, some of the plays that I like to follow the most, because when you're following multi-million dollar hedge fund traders, their trades end up normally being pretty good. So keep a close eye on this one. But all in all, Tom, while the market was choppy today, that's all right, because volatility is still increasing, and that is, essentially what we want. The more volatility increases, the better it is for, short-term trading, and that's what kind of generates the crazy moves that we see in the options market, like, 1,000% moves, on some of these underlying options. So with everything being said, do you have any final thoughts or anything else you're watching?
Yeah, just don't forget about Costco tomorrow, guys, in after hours. That's going to be the big thing to keep in mind as far as, I think big news coming out tomorrow. And then we just don't forget about the marijuana news Wednesday either. That's going to be pretty big. I think that those marijuana stocks could definitely move tomorrow a little bit. A lot of times these stocks move in anticipation of these things passing, and this looks like it's going to pass this committee with flying colors. So hopefully we get some good movement tomorrow, Mike. It sounds like a pretty fun opportunity, and these stocks, when they get volatile, they really go.
Oh yeah, let's go. I love to see it. Also, again, you guys got to try out Bookmap if you haven't already. You will save with the link in the description in the comments down below, so definitely check it out. Also, if you're new to the channel, smash that subscribe button. You'll see our videos recommended to you more often. And in every single video, we talk about, big money trades, the most important news you need to know, and then short-term predictions as well. But with that being said, this is the last thing. I want to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, DN9597 on YouTube. Thank you so much for all of your support and comments down below. Tom and I really appreciate it. And besides that, guys, let's have an amazing week in the markets.